So today I would like to talk about faith, our spiritual lives, our relationship with God in the context of families, and how important it is for all of our individual families to gather here at Epiphany and to be one bigger family and to recognize the larger family that we are all a part of, this world and every person on the planet. So last week and this week, Jesus talks about the little ones. And when terms like little ones keep popping up, we know that it's important to pay attention. This week, Jesus says, if any of you put a stumbling block before one of these little ones who believes in me, it would be better for you if a great millstone were hung around your neck and you were thrown into the sea. Jesus is not messing around today. Jesus seems to be using the words little ones as a metaphor for all innocent people, young and old. But I think he's also using the term literally. And the word stumble, I don't think it's quite the best translation. I think it might be better to say, don't horrify children. Don't abuse children, or don't terrorize children. So, what is it that horrifies us? What is it that makes you stumble? What are the challenges of being a family? How do you make it work? So today I'd like to propose two things. The first challenge is having difficult conversations. And they say that public speaking is one of the most common phobias. And I'd have to agree if public speaking means that you just open your mouth and you speak to another person, whether that's public or private. Having difficult conversations is hard. And there's a lot of different conversations. And so I'd like to expose on a couple of different conversations that you might be engaging in that are difficult. So one conversation might be having a conversation with your parents when they are getting older, and they might be moving into retirement, they might be moving into a skilled care facility. How do you have conversations about those next steps? Or maybe money is tight and you have to live together. How do you have those difficult conversations about living together in one house again? If you're a teenager, you can have challenges just being intimate with your parents, talking about maybe the relationships you're in, having conversations about being in school, your classes, and then the big question, your career. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go to college? That can be a difficult conversation. And then we have big conversations like that around death. What happens when you die? How do you plan for that? But what actually happens? How do you have conversations about that? Or questions and conversations about bad things that happen to innocent people, natural disasters, that kind of stuff. How do you explain that? It's hard. It's hard to talk about these things. What are we doing on this planet? Who are we? Who is this God that we come here to learn about? And it's easy when we get into these conversations to get confused, to get mad at one another, to get angry. But that's not the stumbling block. I don't think that's it. The stumbling block is when we avoid having these conversations. Or worst of all, we just ignore them and pretend like having these difficult conversations aren't important at all. It's when we get set on being right. It's when we don't ask for help and come talk to each other. So I guess the question is, how do we have these difficult conversations with each other? Well, you just do it. There isn't an easy way to have difficult conversations. And when you have these difficult questions, there's difficult answers. And you know that they're difficult conversations because you don't want to have them. You don't want to talk about them. Because you know, I don't know. You know that you don't know what the answer is often, especially as parents. You don't know what the right thing is to say. And it's okay to struggle with that. It's okay to be in that unknowing. As children, as parents, as mentors, as guardians, as brothers and sisters, it's important to keep in mind that there are oftentimes no easy answers to these questions. And it's important for us to have compassion for each other, whether you're a teenager, elementary school, a parent, a grandparent. It's important that we come here to Epiphany and engage in these conversations. This is a platform, this is a place where we get to do that together. We get to have those conversations together, and we get to support each other in those conversations. And be reminded that the presence of God in our life is that loving support that we provide for one another. So the second point that I'd like, the second challenge, the stumbling block that we often run into as families is time. There never seems to be enough time in the day to get everything done. So what deserves your time? What are your priorities? Well, for the adults and the parents and the grandparents, it's typically work or retirement. It's handling the finances, it's paying the bills. That's what comes first. That's what gets the biggest piece of that pie. Then if you're a teenager, it's school. It's activities. It's sports. It's getting your homework done. It's gearing up ultimately from college. That's what gets the biggest piece of the pie. And then there's all the other pieces. There's the romantic relationships, choosing what to eat, the exercise, time off, vacations. Those all take up other little pieces of that pie. And then what often seems to happen is that the smallest, basically what gets cut first, what typically gets the smallest piece of that pie is our spiritual walk, our spiritual journey. It's our relationship with God that gets taken out of the picture first. But the truth is, our faith, life, our spiritual journey, our walk with God, it isn't even a piece of the pie. The truth is that our spiritual journey, our relationship with Christ, it's the plate that holds the pie. It impacts every facet of our lives, of all of our lives. It is the key. It is the trim tab. It is the meaning that we give our lives. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a physical human experience." This is why we are here. This is why we wake up on Sunday morning to gather. It's to be refreshed in the Spirit in this community. So the spiritual practices that we can apply to our family life at home and at the church and in the world are not to be afraid to ask difficult questions, and not to be afraid of not knowing the answer.